Hi, Obie. Welcome to the Leanpub launch video for patterns of application development using AI. I was wondering if you could just take a little bit of time today to talk about your book and about yourself and tell us who you are and who the book's for.
Sure, Len. Thanks for the invite. It's good to see you again. And let's see. I'm super excited about this book. Like I'm so excited about this book. I was recently giving a talk about AI at a conference, and the talk went great. And I kind of discussed the field and about programmers being scared of losing their jobs and whatnot. But I turned the topic really quickly into, look, this thing, stop worrying about whether AI is going to take your job and realize that there's these new programming paradigms that are coming into our reality, let's say, that are revolutionary. And I've been immersed in them for the last year. And these are going to change everything over the next couple of years in terms of what's capable, what small teams, what individual contributors are capable of doing and accomplishing in terms of tackling complicated, complex kinds of features, things you want to do in your apps that right now, or until very recently, were pretty much impossible or would usually not be cost effective. You wouldn't see the ROI on them. And if you apply certain patterns of thinking, and certain patterns of building these AI components, they can be very effective. And someone, an old friend of mine that happened to be in the audience, Tom Rossi, shot his hand up and was like, "Obie, how do I get started?" It was real funny because I kept talking, but this background thread fired off in the back of my mind. I said, "That book that you've been putting together notes for, this is the time. Like you just got to do it." Because there's people out there who are, like my friend Tom, kind of seeing what's going on and feeling super overwhelmed, and yet have FOMO because they're like, okay, well, how do I get started? Like, where do I begin? And you asked me a little bit about myself. So back in the day, a long time ago, I wrote a book called The Rails Way in 2007, and the Rails Way was that bridge. So many people over the years have told me that was how they figured out how to get started, because even though it's a big fat reference book and was considered the Bible of Rails, I wrote it in a very readable way, in a very approachable way. There's a lot of wit and irreverence and kind of snark and applied knowledge there, because at that point in 2007, I'd already been doing Rails for a couple of years, and I was one of the first people in the world to do paid Rails development at ThoughtWorks. So I had a lot of like real code to show. It wasn't like dogs and cats and a car has four wheels and stuff like that. It was like real stuff from real projects. And
Yeah, you write in the preface of your book, just to jump in, about how like this is the first book since then where it's like so based on like your own deep personal experience.
oh, absolutely, like the last serious book I tried to do was my book on serverless technology, which I started doing as soon as that technology came out. And the problem there is I was writing it as I was trying some of these things out at work, and it was totally unproven, and the whole field is moving so quickly that everything I wrote was obsolete. Like in within a month, was just kind of felt obsolete, and the whole book was very difficult to get off the ground. The good thing is you might wonder, like, hey, why isn't it the same thing with this book now, that you're writing, because AI is changing so quickly. And the answer is that in contrast to serverless, which, you're kind of doing things the same way, except you're deploying them in a different way. And that deployment is what was changing, kind of like the approaches for structuring things was changing, but it was still kind of the same. This is like a mindset shift. This is fairly revolutionary in terms of these patterns are new, right? Like they represent different ways of thinking about how to actually include compute power in your application.
Mm. Yeah, and one of the patterns you talk about, just to sort of get specific, there is self-healing data.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you just to give us an example of what you talk about in the book. What's self-healing data?
Well, in the different stages where data comes in or goes out, I guess mostly when it comes in, as opposed to just throwing an error and letting something else, probably a human, deal with the exception and figure out what went wrong. AI, these powerful models, since they can understand the context of what's trying to come through, there are circumstances where you can pass that data that's broken, that generate an exception in the rest of your code. I have cases where I actually give it the exception that was generated and give it to the AI and give it the data and go, hey, this JSON didn't parse, or this onboarding processor wasn't able to understand the user's answers. What did they actually, what did they actually mean? And the ability to do that is revolutionary, because you'd never be able to do that algorithmically just with imperative code. I mean, you could try. I've tried in the past. Any of us who's been working long enough programming has been in these situations where you have inconsistent inputs into your system for whatever reason. Maybe the system you're interfacing is flaky, maybe it changes a lot, so on and so forth. So the ability to have this component in your system now that sits there and doesn't have to be babysat to make sure that it works, and it can just you can give it the liberty to do judgment calls when it, in fixing data, is remarkable. But
that's just amazing.
That's a conceptual pattern. And then what I'm trying to do in the book is go, kind of how Martin has done in some of his Martin Fowler has done in some of the classic books and stuff like that. Like, some of the patterns are kind of big and conceptual, but then we get down to specific examples. Like the ventriloquist pattern, and I try to give them kind of cool, memorable names so that we start building a vocabulary, right? So the ventriloquist pattern is actually a pattern for how to use a conversational LLM chat model. And what you do is you speak for the AI assistant. So you create a conversation between yourself as the user and the AI assistant, and you provide the responses that the AI assistant did, and you do that more than once. It's not just like you're leading off. You're not just teeing off the AI assistant to continue what you said. You literally have a multi-stage conversation where you go, the user is in this situation, and then you respond with the AI assistant, okay, I got it. What do you want me to do next? And then you go, okay, what I want you to do next is to do this and this. And then maybe you even supplied the first step, right? Because you already know what the first step is. I want you to parse this, whatever the case may be. You supply the next step. You go, okay, now I want you to fill in the blank, do the next step. And that helps to do what I call narrowing the path, which I talk a lot about at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses the attention of the AI very, very effectively to, okay, I need to do step 2. Right? Because you've just you've already established that it's following your instructions. And that's incredibly difficult to do in a single prompt. If you played it, right? Like, a lot of times you can try to do the same thing in a single prompt, but by the time you get down to the bottom of the end of the prompt, it's already lost track of what you were trying to tell it to do, and it'll do something else. So it's that level of practical techniques, and actually show you the code, for how to do it. Look, it's this easy.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really clear that the patterns are really well named and evocative and all that. And the last thing I want to ask you about the book is, so you're publishing it in progress. Do you have a plan for like monthly releases, or is it more ad hoc?
Well, I mean, no one's ever called me bipolar before, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm manic, because I've been writing like every night, like, super, super excited. I'm just trying to strike while the iron's hot. So, I mean, I've been hitting publish now. I've now hit publish 3 times in 2 days. It's like, basically I as I add something of value, I hit publish to make sure that whoever gets the next download has that fresh information.
Well,
so I'm planning to finish in a matter of, maybe a month or 2 at most.
Okay, great. I mean,
I already know what I want to say.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about getting that finish line. I'm also excited about doing the actual publishing of a dead tree copy. with your Amazon program. So I'm super excited about getting to the finish line so I can actually hit that button.
That's awesome. I mean, the book definitely conveys the excitement that you just conveyed here with the TKs, the two comes that you've got throughout the book and stuff like that. It's just really awesome. The book is Patterns of Application Development Using AI by Obie Fernandez. Thank you very much, Obie, for taking time to do the launch video today.
Thank you, Len.